a exam room, or excuse me, surgery room, where they had to disable the window because you're not supposed to have an open window. And the sign said, the Veterinary Medical Board has demanded that we disable or disarm, whatever, this window. They don't care if we burn to death.
Oh my God.
Oh, Lord.
And that was the sign that was hanging in the... Yes. Wrong. That was the sign that was hanging in the window. So we do try to advise them that they're not supposed to have an operable window. However, if it presents some sort of fire hazard or a safety hazard, you know, we tell them, look, we're not the fire marshals. If this is the only exit, don't disable the window.
Right.
So we are reasonable, but I just thought that sign was interesting. We're losing a staff member in our hospital inspection program that's going to private industry. She is incredible. Christina is the one that handles all of the IRs, all of the payments. She coordinates the inspections, and it's a huge loss for us, but we're actively recruiting for that position. And I know there's a couple more board members that wanted to do ride-alongs. I know Lee wanted to do a ride-along.
I do.
And,
After
okay.
November 8th.
Okay, perfect. So there's an inspector down in your area, and actually maybe when Lee does hers, then we can coordinate a couple for you too as well. Yeah. Okay.
Do you do them in SoCal? I mean,
Yes. Do we do inspections or ride-alongs?
ride-alongs in
Yeah.
SoCal?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. And actually, Dr. Lorkowski is down in SoCal, and she would probably do your ride-along.
Orange County or Los Angeles?
They can go anywhere. They
Oh,
go
good.
everywhere. We have
Okay.
to go everywhere.
Cool, thank you.
Still no momentum on hospital inspector uniforms?
Sorry, still no momentum on. And when we talk about the budget, you'll see why.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay.
You want to do the budget?
Ethan's here to talk about the budget projection. Did we get the FM? Okay.
It's in front of you.
Are we using
Hopefully you
this
have a
now?
copy. Yes.
I'll grab another copy. Go ahead, Ethan.
You sure?
Oh, no, it's the budget.
So, yeah, what you have in front of you, you have the fiscal month 3 projection. Just got it last night. Wanted to give you the most recent versioning of that.
Ethan, can you speak up a little? There's a
sure.
lot of mechanical noise in the room.
Okay.
So hard to hear.
Is this better? No.
No.
Can't hear me?
It-
Can you
yeah,
hear me
louder.
now? Okay. So FM3, most recent projections we have, or actual expenditures for your perusal, of course. Couple of things you'll notice on this particular report. There are some expenditures. Let me take a step back. Actually, FM3 means we're 25% through our fiscal year, July through June. And you'll see on a couple of these expenditures, we're expending more than what you'd expect, a 25-33%. Some of our expenditures, for example, facilities operations line item, that's our rent, they're front loaded. You'll also see that in the expert examiners, that's our exam workshops. The exam season tends to be around the early part of the fiscal year, so a lot of our expenses are incurred early on in the fiscal year. Other expenses that we do keep track of that have come in high in previous fiscal years are and they're highlighted on this particular chart for you, are our hospital inspection program and the AG expenses. So it continues to be a concern for us, ensuring that we have the money to pay those bills and continue the good work that those folks do. And I'll take any questions.
We're at 4.2%, is that right, at the bottom there?
Surplus, yes.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, was that what we were expecting? I thought it was
you
going to
know,
be less, but
that's-
it's better than what we thought?
Yeah, and that's pretty typical, but
Yeah.
this is only the third fiscal month. Last year we ended up 0.2%
Right.
reserve or surplus. So it's a kind of a work in progress, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Ian, what can you explain what's going on with the communications? Was that new hardware or?
Let's see, communications specifically. It's likely a department pro rata, or it could also be our telephone. Hang on one second.
It is a pro rata. It's DCA's public affairs and public outreach unit. So that's something that's built in without anything that we have control over. It's, we fund the departments, different entities or different offices to provide support services to the board. So communications, last year, you can see we spent $19,000. We're only budgeted for 9, so they can only bill us out what we're budgeted for. They can't, Parata can't go
Yeah.
beyond the budget stone.
Where is the OPES stuff from yesterday?
So under
Where do they
exam-
appear?
Under
That was-
exam
yeah.
expenses,
It's
If
the
you s-
external
if-
subject matters.
yeah.
Where is it?
Under exam expenses, about 2/3 of the way down the page is exam expenses.
Yes, I'm there.
And then also under departmental services, Judy, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4 down, it's that IA is an internal agency agreement with OPES. So the number there in terms of actual expenses and prior year expenditures, that covers some of it covers our contract with OPES, but it also includes our contract with PSI.
So
the
is it pretty
exam-
much there like all the time because
Uh-huh.
it's an ongoing thing?
Right.
Yeah, those
Right.
contracts are
right,
recurring,
thank
for
you.
sure.
But you can see
They
in...
seem well worth it.
Oh, but you can see in the subject matter external line item, if you look all the way over to the right, or to the projections to year end, you see that 232,000 plus?
Yes.
That's because we're doing an occupational analysis. So
I knew
typically,
it had to be there, some
that number
substantial.
won't be as high in future years. It's the years that we
Yeah.
do the OA.
And
The
I'd even
audit.
say we
Are
should
they-
probably adjust this because that's a projection out. Like I said, some of these expenses are front loaded. This is workshop season, so we are seeing a lot of reporting of the cost to staff those workshops right now.
Got it. All right, thank you.
That'll drop off late summer.
Yeah, once we learned
Or-
yesterday that they provide that service for us, I thought, nothing's ever jumped out of the budget, where they fell into.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, very good, thank you.
Unfortunately, I packed away my notes for the administrative reports, or fortunately. Which line item is for hospital inspections? Because I seem to remember from the last meeting, there was a budget change proposal. for the
Yeah, that's
hospital
correct.
inspection.
So if you go about a third of the way down, it's under operating expenses and equipment. The amount charged for inspections account item is under facilities operations. I'm sorry. It's a highlight, CMP services external.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Bad
So
note.
that 106, yeah.
Okay.
And one of our efforts is to better delineate on this worksheet the actual expenses and where they occur. It's a work in progress. Budgets right now is going through an update with their database program Fiscal. So it's the next thing up. Once we can kind of clarify how our reporting occurs, we want to make sure that the expenses are more accurately reflected to where they're budgeted.
Okay. But we haven't gotten that budget change proposal in yet.
So there are some budget change proposals that are in the works specific to hospital inspections and AG allocations. Yes.
Okay.
So those wouldn't hit the budget, though, until
No.
17,
18, yes.
So when you do a BCP, a budget change proposal, it goes through a process for a year, and then it reflects on that future budget. It's got to be built in, so it wouldn't be built in until next January if it gets approved, right? January of 18, and then it would hit the budget the 17, 18
Yes, that's correct.
fiscal year.
Thank you.
Yeah. But just a point on hospital inspection, if you look at that CNP external line item and you look at actual expenses for month 13, $227,251, and you look at what we're budgeted for, 106.
Yeah.
That's why there is a budget change proposal, because we are underfunded for our hospital inspection program right now. And clearly, we're going to have an issue, because you look at our projections, we know we're spending, so that's something that we need to correct in our projections. We know we're spending at least $180,000 plus in hospital inspections on any given year. And right now, our net appropriation in terms of what we have what we have left is 200,000 after everything is projected out to the end of the year. So the budget is extremely tight, and I think it's something that we need to be cognizant of, because I will tell you that in the last 3 fiscal years, we've overexpended our AG budget, and we're only forecasted today to spend 460,000, which is what we're budgeted for. Obviously, we overexpend hospital inspection program. Exam expenses have been overspent in previous fiscal years. And I want to set the tone for this, because we're going to be coming back to you in January and talking about what we need to do in terms of fee increases. And I hate to mention this because I know you all just went through that in 2012, but with Breeze costs, and we don't have VACSP revenue yet to offset some of this, and if we don't get in the amount of revenue that we projected, which it's hard to tell today what that's going to look like, we are underfunded. So at the next meeting, we will be providing you with fund conditions, which show you what we are 3 years out. Well, it'll be current year, next year, and then +3. And you'll see where our fund is, which is our savings account, because our fund is not keeping up with our expenses. So we are projected, I think as of today, we're projected to be over budget and overspent in, I think, fiscal years.
About 2 fiscal years from now, it looks like we're going negative.
Yeah, we're in it,
current
so we have a
projections.
negative fund balance, which means we have nothing in our savings account.
But we were supposed to increase the hospital inspections, but we didn't have to pay for it because of VASCP.
VACSP.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen the revenue from VACSP yet.
Oh, no revenue
No
yet.
revenue,
That's
because
what
we
you were
just
saying.
rolled out the program, and, you know, we
Mm-hmm.
need to watch that. Even if the VACSP revenue comes in
Right.
where we projected it to come in, because of ongoing Breeze costs, it's not going to offset what we need. So yes, you're right. The VACSP program
Was
was
supposed to pay for it
supposed
all.
to offset
Yeah.
the hospital inspection, but no one anticipated the Breeze costs that we're incurring today.
Because of VACSP?
No, because Breeze is
Just because of
really
Breeze,
expensive.
period.
And we didn't
Yeah.
get funded, you know.
But
there
shouldn't
wasn't
that,
additional
shouldn't that be reimbursed from
Exactly.
DCA or someplace?
Can we sue DCA?
I mean, somewhere, it's got to
Never
come
paid
from
that.
somewhere, because they're the ones that spent too much time.
I mean,
And despite the fact you get revenue, you still need to ask to be able to use it, because you get apportioned, right? And so we may have money going to the savings account essentially.
Right,
So you still have to make that request to increase your budget
it
amount.
seems,
right.
Yeah.
it seems,
Well, we don't have a fund condition today
Anne
because
Marie.
it's not accurate, yes.
I mean, it's going to be difficult to justify to the licensees that we have to increase fees partly due to Breeze with all the difficulties in rollouts. So how is DCA going to help us in this issue?
I don't know that you're going to get support for that as far as, I mean, they would probably testify, well, it's not legislation. So here's the other thing that I think is important to mention. Our cap is already set in statute, so we don't have to go back to the legislature and raise our cap. We have to do this by regulation. So would they help us? They would probably support the regulations because they understand from an operational perspective, we needed to make a change to the integrated information system that was completely archaic. Now, could we have done it less expensive? I'm not an expert, so I don't know how I can answer
Well,
that.
I was hoping they would help us financially.
I don't think that's going to happen. We help them financially. We pay for their services. I don't think they don't get general fund money to help us financially,
So my question is, how much longer is this expected to go on?
indefinitely.
1 year? 5 years? That it's going to
What-
be
how
expensive
much-
for a Breeze implementation?
So the initial startup costs were obviously much more expensive, and now they've leveled off, well, they're starting to level off to a maintenance cost. And that maintenance cost is in your budget.
Yeah, how much is that?
So if you look at the ongoing maintenance costs, and I need to find it under IT.
It's mostly built under departmental pro rata.
Ethan, you have to speak up. We can't hear you.
Departmental pro rata, under
Okay, so
departmental
under
services.
departmental pro rata, if we look at, is it built into the 458,000?
Yeah, it is, and so kind of like two parts, like you mentioned, Anne-Marie. There's the contract cost, of course, that for the vendor that we use to actually set up Breeze. Additionally, you have the impact of additional staff that were hired on the DCA side that will be taking over the maintenance operations of the Breeze system. So once the contract costs may start dropping off, but we'll see our pro rata continue with the addition of IT staff that maintain and operate the system.
So it's $500,000 indefinitely?
No, so
and that's not all. That's not all Breeze.
this is
just to be
not all
clear.
Breeze,
Oh,
and I think what
458 is not all Breeze.
Yeah.
Oh.
what would be helpful for all of us is to
Yes.
have actual Breeze costs presented when we talk about
That'd
fee
be
increase
great.
at the
Right,
next
right.
board meeting, because you and I have talked about this for a while. You know, the department didn't have hard numbers at the time we testified for Sunset Review. I don't know how many of you remember. That was one of the questions I was asked to testify to, was how is Breeze working? What's been the impact? What are your struggles? Well, the fiscal impact, we didn't really know at the time because they were still working out that ongoing maintenance cost for all the boards, because of course it's a shared cost between all of the R2 boards that rolled out. We have since been given numbers, and actually, I believe next week on Thursday, the entire DCA boards and bureaus are meeting with the department on all of our pro rata costs, so they can explain to us how they charge us per service or per employee. And so my assumption is that a large time component of that meeting is going to be devoted to explaining how you're going to continue to charge these boards for Breeze costs. And an estimate that we were given is high 200,000s ongoing for maintenance costs, which is substantially more than what we paid for CAS and ATS, which were the antiquated systems. Obviously, there's more involved in the upkeep because Breeze is a web-based interactive, IT program. However, to the point that Ethan made, we're now paying for more staff at DCA to do the work, but the impact on our staff has been substantial. So Ethan spends still, to this day, more than 50% of his time triaging problems with the Breeze system. To pay a manager who's supposed to be managing programs, at a management level, to devote 50% of his time to the upkeep of an IT system when we're also paying,
staff.
more staff at DCA, it's been an impact on the board that I don't think has been necessarily considered by all the players, the people that are in charge of making these things happen. And we have an opportunity at this meeting to make that plea. We are also considering during the next BCP so that the Department of Finance, State and Consumer Services Agency, which is now Business, Housing, and Consumer Services Agency, if we put in a request for more staff because of the impact to this IT system, it's going to get attention. And sometimes you need to do those things just so people recognize how much of a burden it has been to keep up with. I can't speak to it as well as Ethan can, but on a daily basis, Ethan is triaging a half a dozen emails and requests for fixes and information on how to fix and upkeep requests to the data. He's the manager of the licensing, exam, and admin unit. So I've got my manager in two different directions.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important at this meeting to really let them know how much it's impacting. And we're not a large board.
No.
And it's going to affect the smaller boards a lot more than it's going to affect the bigger boards. And I hope they're not spreading the cost evenly among the boards, because that would be unfair. And even if they're doing it based on our size,
Yeah.
there should be some even additional consideration that it's going to affect a larger percentage of our budget.
So they do base the cost of Breeze on the complexity of the program, how many license types it has, how many licensees they license, how many, for example, we have an inspection program, so we get charged for the inspection program side of things. If you had CE audits, through Breeze, that would be an additional charge. I can tell you that our university license rollout added almost an additional $100,000, and that's a very rough estimate today. But every time we add a new license type or add a modification to the program, we pay for it out of our pocket. So again, we'll recoup some of the costs in terms of initial license fees and application fees. But there's no way, because of the small population of university licenses that we're going to issue, that we're going to be able to recoup all of the costs associated with Breeze. So there's a structural imbalance right now between what we're bringing in and what we're paying out. And you can do that for a couple of years and kind of watch the revenue fluctuation, but it's pretty clear to us today, based on the numbers and the forecasts, that we're underfunded. We're not the only board that's going
Yeah,
through this right
that's-
now. So I
that's
think
what I
it's
was
fair to
gonna ask.
mention at a recent EO meeting with the leadership of the department, there were a couple of boards, respiratory care, I believe LVN, who had a public statement about this generating a fee increase and that it was not going to be popular amongst industry. So,
Yeah,
where we are.
that's what I was going to ask. I mean, I assume this has been applying to many of the boards, and they're all going to have to deal with the potential of a fee increase due to no reason other than the additional cost. One thing I wanted to ask, Ethan, is, so it sounds like our staff costs haven't, or our staff time hasn't really dropped much yet in the maintenance and triaging of Breeze internally, but are we still sending as many, I forget what you call those, the IT change? You know, last time we had 85 in the system or something like that. Is it still?
There's an ongoing maintenance for sure. We do have occasional fixes that we want to do.
But they're not as
There's a
many?
list. It's something that we're trying to find the time to get to all those that we call them BTRs. They end up being system investigation requests. Yeah, certainly we have I would consider a backlog of those. The other thing to consider too is there's also global changes to Breeze. Like there's some military bills that came out in this upcoming calendar year, January 1, 2017, that impact Breeze. So these are system changes that we're a part of as a department that we need to plan for, and that takes up bandwidth of the actual IT planning and design of the system.
So far, can you attribute any savings time? Part of the Breeze concept, obviously, was ultimately once in place to save staff time, to make it more efficient, to make it more, I mean, are we seeing any kind of positive?
Yeah, actually, and it's
Okay.
jumping ahead a little bit to my report, but I'll tell you right now that the online component is huge for us. We're looking at 60% of our applications
That's great.
are coming into us online, which was not an option before Breeze. So I'd say that's a good news thing with Breeze. Also, the university licensure that we're talking about, we've been in discussion with UC Davis Western, and they're willing to go completely paperless. We want to try that out. There'll be no paper options, so everything will be completely online with those folks. And it's something we'd like to explore with all our applications and all our license types somewhere down the road.
Did everyone hear that part? Okay, so what Ethan was saying is with university, there's a fan behind us.
We can't
You
hear.
can't hear me
Still
at
can't
all?
hear anything.
Get really close.
Maybe we could move the table closer.
I'm sorry to ask you, but can you see if they can turn off this fan behind us? Because we can't hear anything. Ethan was talking about the university license rollout program, and we've talked to UC Davis, and I believe Dr. Pasco shared it with Dr. Tara. We're going to try to do that license type all paperless, so there'll be no paper applications. So it will be an attempt to see what we can do as far as a pure paperless submission, because that does limit. Actually, it helps on the licensee side of things. They get their license quicker, and it's a much more efficient process. But it also saves time, staff opening mail, staff, going through paper documents. So we're going to test pilot the university license, since it affects such a small population of individuals, to see how entirely paperless would work for us.
Yes, Jennifer?
I just wanted to remind the board that we've had, outcry from the RVT community to examine fee structure to explore the possibility of lowering fees. So I know fee increases are not popular, but if we do increase RVT licenses, there's going to be significant pushback from the RVT community, including the one sitting at this table. So.
Yeah.
So along with the proposed fee increase, we've talked to our budget folks, and we certainly have talked about doing a contract for a complete audit of all the fees we charge, along with the RVT exam fees, so we make sure that we're in line with what we're actually paying for these services.
Yeah, so we're looking at doing having an
A
outside
third-party
entity
vendor, yes.
come in to do a cost analysis, but not just the RVT exam, but all exams
Yes.
and all fees.
That's good.
Because I think the audit itself should be representative of everything that we charge in terms of what our expenses are. He's come, can't hear. Okay, thank you. So it'll be interesting to see what those findings are. And there's a couple of outside entities that other DCA boards have used in the past to do their fee structure audit. I also think from a PR point of view, it's much better to have a outside entity come in and
Yeah.
audit your fees than try to justify raising fees because we say we need the money. So
Well, when was it done last, if ever?
I don't know that we've ever had an outside.
No.
Now, we
That's
did
what
have
I've never heard of such a thing.
Not a fee audit. I
We've
mean,
had CPS come in and
Yeah.
audit workload. and
Yes,
that's how
I
we got
remember
additional
that.
staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've never done an entire fee audit.
That's
Would there
great.
be any benefit, I would assume other
Dick
boards
has
do
hand
this.
up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dick.
He's the chair.
You can finish.
Since I started yapping. Would there be any benefit in doing something collectively with some other boards for fee audits that we could save some money so that, not have one outside entity just do ours, but do multiple boards? And
It would be if we had
If-
interest from other boards to
Yeah.
do it now.
I don't know if
Since
there
we're
is.
entertaining a fee increase, what we don't want to do is wait on the audit because that would
Yes.
be great justification as part of our rulemaking file as to why the fees are necessary. So,
Right.
I could talk to the EO from respiratory care to see if they're interested since they have a fund imbalance. I could talk to some of the other smaller boards that are impacted by Breeze through
Right.
R2 and see if there might be a collective contract that we could.
that everybody could start right now?
That's
Yeah.
a great idea, Kathy.
So when was the last time there was an increase in the veterinary license fee?
2012?
March 2012.
Yeah. We also have to look at what we're doing. You can't achieve 20% hospital inspections. You can't put out a whole new program for controlled drugs on veterinary assistants. You can't increase staff. You can't do all these things that we've been pushing for the last 5 years and not have the budget go up. So it's, we just have to do it. That's what we're mandated to do. And the only way that can be changed is if we go to the legislature and say, take this off our plate.
Right.
And they're not going to do that.
Right.
I think you're right on track with having the outside audit because it's just never been done. And that way they can justify and guide us. That's awesome. Thank you.
What's the date of that meeting that you're going to have with
It's next Thursday, so is that the 27th? It's right
Yes.
after the CVMA task force meeting, which is Wednesday. I believe it's Thursday. Is it
It's
27th?
It's Thursday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the 27th.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the good news is that when we do start to talk about fee increases, I will no longer be president.
No. Well, there's that. There's that.
Thank
I
you,
have
Mark.
Can I ask one more question of Ian? Okay. Ian, could you just speak down in exam expenses to the external expert examiners and whether you think that that's a realistic projection for the year end?
No, the 232,000, it's not. It's, if you look at the first column, that was last year's final expenditures. That's probably what we're going to come in around at. And this is purely for our subject matter experts and the cost that incurs.
But we don't have a line item built in for the OA, and I think that's what that line item is taking into account.
It is, yeah. You do have additional workshops.
Right.
Yeah, and that continues with
yes.
this.
Plus
this is
plus the audit they're doing of the VT&E.
the VLE.
Yeah, aren't they auditing the VT&E
Yeah,
too?
that's part of the
OA?
the occupational analysis. Yes.
So Ethan, I agree with you that whatever we said, 80,000 is, if you add all those numbers up. I think last year we came in, I think they're missing some numbers here, but yeah, it's right around 80,000 last year if you look at actual expenditures for month 13. But that's on a normal year where we're not doing an OA. So I think the reason why the budget shop projected out the 201 or the 232, sorry, is to account for the ongoing occupational analysis. I mean, we can get clarification on that, but I'm pretty sure we're looking at a much higher costs this year because of the OA. Unless that's built in somewhere else.
On a purely subject matter expert level,
Yeah.
we did have OA workshops last year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be close.
Okay.
There may be additional 2 or 3 workshops possibly in this fiscal
Okay.
year, but it was kind of like a two fiscal year deal with all the workshops bleeding
Got
over
it.
from one to the next. So I think the expenditures reflected last fiscal year is pretty close to what we're going to see this year.
Can you check with Matt, though, just out of curiosity, why he projected out the 200 plus?
Honestly, I think that's just it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it probably just does a formula right there.
Huh.
Sorry, Ethan, I called you Ian. My apologies.
That's okay.
Okay. Do you want to stay and do your
Yeah,
licensing and exam report?
Sure. Okay, sub C, reports in front of you. I just want to touch on a couple things in my report specifically. We talked about under applications received for vets and techs, we're looking at about 60% of those coming in online, which is something we're very proud of. We'd like to see that continue to increase.
Are we doing this one?
Yeah.
Are we doing this
Ethan.
one?
C.
Okay. That's
Yes.
Ethan.
Yes.
Can you put your microphone
Still-
like another
still-
3 inches
Yeah.
closer to you?
You're
Still not.
probably
I think
sorry.
the speakers are pointing that way.
You're probably talking loud enough. It's
Yeah.
because of this
Yeah.
behind us. We
So-
can't
no,
hear.
pull your microphone
All
closer.
That's why I was pulling mine way up like
Pointing the
this.
wrong direction too.
I still say pull
Need
the
the speakers
table.
to go that way.
It's pointing the wrong direction?
I think that yeah, they can.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this is a hand, was a handout. Can't hear you.
I'll try to talk louder like this.
Barry,
Talk
yeah.
louder and into the microphone.
I like the license.
Okay.
You're too far away.
Did you hear
Get
what
closer.
they
No.
said about the
You gotta get
applications?
close. Gotta get close.
Got to get
Hello?
close to it.
Just come in and handheld hold it like you're doing a lounge act.
Put it over here.
We have a significant
See,
amount of
that's it.
applications
Yeah,
come in
yeah,
online,
yes.
and we're very happy. We're shooting for more than 60%, but that's good. It was 0% before Breeze.
Yeah, it was handed. Hold on, there's a couple people that don't have your report. Are there
Really?
extras?
Yeah, I left them yesterday.
I think it probably got mixed up because it was handed yesterday.
I'll just look at this.
Let me see if I can grab a couple extras.
I got it, I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Buried it.
I got 2 enforcements. Somebody's going to need one of these. Yeah, I got this, but I got 2 of these in case somebody needs one.
Well, the enforcements are for different years.
Sorry,
You should have
circuits.
two.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are we good?
ahead.
Good to go? Okay, just want to highlight a couple parts of my report. I've attached to this report, per previous requests, the exam statistics for the VT&E and the California exam. These are both the RVT exams, just to be clear, the national and the state. So those are there for your perusal. Moving on to veterinary assistant controlled substances permit.
Yeah, I'll give you an opportunity in a second. There's been an awful lot of questions in regards to who does not need to have a permit.
Yes.
And I know that there was. Is there going to be another outreach effort to specifically address who does not need this permit? Because it's not being rolled out, and I don't know if there's just been a lot of confusion and a lot of questions on this rollout.
Right. So there was all the work we did before go live for all intents and purposes to get the word out. We acknowledge there continues to be work to get the word out as well. We're leveraging our hospital inspectors. We actually mailed out like these kind of half-size postcards to all we talked about this previously. We're going to have our hospital inspectors not only speak to the permit process, but hand out, again, the information in the postcards. To your point, Dr. Nias, there are some questions relative to application of the permit and who it applies to, and that's something we're asking the board to help us disseminate. I have 3 bullet points in my report of issues that have come up subsequent to go live of the program that we'd like to discuss further.
Yeah, I think as I understand it, the operative word is whoever has access to the controlled substances are the ones that need to hold the permit.
The way, yeah.
Yeah, because there's questions about receptionists, can they take it off the shelf and hand it to the client, or can a person who's in charge of the boarding facilities give medicines to a pet that's already been prescribed these controlled substances?
So what are the answers to that? Especially the receptionist.
Hold on, before we get too far into this, and I mentioned this yesterday in our meeting, this needs to be agendized as a topic.
okay.
So when we get to future agenda items, I'm going to propose that we talk about some of these more specific
Right.
questions
Yes.
so that the policy decisions of the board with regard to who holds a VACSP is clear, because I wasn't around for the 2013 discussions, but I have a general understanding, I think, or more than a general understanding, and something that, Lee even asked a question about, if they don't have access to the drugs, but they're just doing some carryover activities. For example, there's already been a prescription, they're already administering the drugs as part of a routine treatment. Do they really need a VACSP? They're not an RVT or a veterinary assistant, they're just administering a drug to an animal that's been prescribed, and there's been it's just no different than you administering, a diabetes injection or insulin injection to your neighbor's pet because you're taking care of them. So, we need to be reasonable about who this was supposed to affect. This is the postcard that went out, so hopefully everyone got it. Jennifer confirmed that their shelter did get this postcard. Dr. Drusi's just doesn't know he got the postcard. But what I want to make sure we don't do is get into the meat and potatoes of it now, because it's not
okay.
agendized.
All right, go ahead.
With the greatest of respect, I'm not sure if these are administrative reports, and these are concerns that I'm hearing from the licensee population, that there is confusion. This postcard does talk a lot about the application process.
There's a FAQ on the website. I was just going to thank staff
I'm just
for
reflecting
that.
what I'm hearing from the population, that we have a PR issue here that I think we need to be aware of and responsive to.
I think that, Mark, because I just went to our website, and the first thing that you see in red, okay, this is vmb.ca.gov, alert, in red, veterinary assistant controlled substances permit, VACSP FAQs. And then there's program update. So I think, I feel bad that I was just going to waste your time asking about it, since it's on our website. So there you go. No PR issue. Just send them to the website.
Dr. Sullivan.
We know that it's there. The PR problem is that our licensees don't go to our website on a
Well, they need to learn. Everybody and their brother goes to websites. I mean, we got Facebook.
All right.
I think the issue, Mr. President, is, from my perspective, there are some questions, I'm guilty of it too, there are some questions that need to be answered. My concern is, I think board can establish those policy questions and answers on a fully agendized item next meeting. That's my only concern.
And can I ask,
Raise your hand.
as far as
We're getting in
as
trouble.
far as distribution of information to the vet practitioners, I assume CVMA is also publicizing and notifying all the practices, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Yeah, we worked in concert with CBMA.
And carved it.
I worked with
Anybody-
CARPTA.
Any of the associations.
Yeah, I worked with Grant Miller on some stuff. They published some information, I believe is the October newsletter, and they have an FAQs they maintain as well on their website.
But not all veterinarians are CVMA members?
No, I understand that. And actually, this just went live, right?
This just went live in
So we
October.
also-
October
okay.
1st. Yeah, we reached out to our email list. We have the postcards.
So
We
they're always-
understand there's still some work to be done getting the word out. in our
I
channels that we
assume
use.
that
Okay,
regularly.
just real quickly, Nancy, did you have something to say?
Well, I have a comment on the VA-CSP. I would also like
You
to...
got to talk into the microphone, Nancy.
I'd also like to say something about the exam statistics. I don't know, you seem to have already gone past that subject, but I wasn't given an opportunity to comment at that point.
We still can't hear. You've got to talk really loud.
As far as the VA-CSP is concerned, I am concerned, and when this program was first created, we brought up the concern that practitioners will assume that a person who holds a VA-CSP is somehow qualified to administer controlled substances. Since holding a VA-CSP only means that you have passed a fingerprint background check and found to be free of drug convictions, it doesn't mean that you have any experience or qualifications to administer controlled drugs. We were told that the board would make that clear in the documents that you were sending, announcing to the veterinarians. Like that postcard that you're sending out doesn't say that. It doesn't say that in the FAQs.
It's in the FAQs, that specific question.
Say that again?
That specific question is in the FAQs.
Okay,
It
thank
is.
you.
I looked at. I must have missed it because I read the FAQs and I didn't find that.
Okay.
But if there's an opportunity to redo that postcard, I would suggest that it be made very clear, because I think that's a very confusing thing with the VA-CSP. Anybody in this room, all the public members could walk into a police station, get fingerprinted, and get a VA-CSP. Anyone who is 18 years of age can get one. You have to have. There's no particular qualifications other than being 18 years of age and not having a drug conviction.
Yeah, I definitely hear that point, but that really wasn't what we were charged to do when we were establishing the program. We weren't charged to teach people about addiction or controlled substance or dosages or use and so forth.
No.
I would love that everyone would be taught on that, but that's just not what the charge was. It was mostly just to prevent any diversion activity and so forth.
Of course, but
I hear you, but we can't.
Well,
we don't have the budget to do that, to teach everyone all that.
well, you do have FAQs and you're sending out material. It's
Okay.
easy enough to make
All
sure
right.
that the material that you're providing includes that information
Okay.
and makes it very prominent, because I think this is a very important issue.
Okay.
And then if I could speak on the
Very quickly, yes.
the exam, you'll notice that the pass rate for the July to December 16 California exam is 54%, down from 94% a year ago. And I think the issue that I brought up yesterday is very, very relevant here, that the test plan was changed. I specifically asked the Veterinary Medical Board staff if the test plan was changed, and I was told, no, it's not going to be changed until 2017. CARV produces the RVT study guide, which everybody uses to study for this examination. They're using a study guide that is not accurate, and therefore I think this is probably responsible for this low pass rate. And I think that going forward, we need to have some sort of better communication between the board and our association. I don't know what you know. Yesterday you had the presentation by the OPES, and she was saying we're trying to protect the security of the examination by keeping you away from information about the examination. So I don't know what information you know, but the test plan was removed from the website. I went to look at the website because the test plan had been on the website. That's where I got it from initially. When I went to check to make sure that when I reproduced the study guide again, I went to the website, couldn't find the test plan because it turns out you had removed it. So I went to the search box on your website, checked the box, searched this site, and up came the test plan. Well, Ethan informed me yesterday, well, the reason and the test plan that came up was the old test plan. And he said, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that because that was just cached in the system and it's just there. But it's the first thing that comes up when you put in your website, put in RVT test plan, that's what comes up. So your website gave me misinformation. I called and asked and was told that the test plan wasn't going to be changed until 2017. Going forward, we need to have a better way to communicate so that we know when I call, I'm given accurate information. If you know something, you can proactively let us know, because as an association, it's our obligation to help the community, and it's your obligation to make sure that the information that we receive is correct.
I just want to ask a clarifying question again. And that,
Speak into the mic.
oh, I'm
And
sorry.
I had
And I'm
my
sorry
hand
about
up.
the caching of the old one, but every applicant that applies, they apply through us, the VMB, and they get the study plan for the test that they're going to be taking.
Through PSI.
Correct.
Right. So all the applicants are seeing that to begin with from the vet board.
And that document is also available on our website. The
the-
candidate information bulletin is
Oh,
what it's
yeah,
called.
okay, and it's
Yeah.
it's a login situation there on the
Right,
candidate.
but see,
Okay. But I see what you're saying, but I just want to confirm that the applicants themselves are receiving
is
the
correct.
necessary information.
And I found out yesterday that that's where the accurate test plan is. But what you're not taking into account is that the schools are teaching this stuff. Applicants or people who are planning to study for the exam don't necessarily have the application, don't necessarily get the application at the time that they're studying, that people study way ahead of the time when they fill out their application.
Judy?
So by the
All
time
right.
they get their application, it may be too late.
All right, I got a couple of things. I want to agree with President Nunez on the VACSP. The only thing that was ever about was, yes, there's a warm body in the office that has their hands on drugs, so therefore we need to fingerprint them, but they could be anybody, and the whole point was just the fingerprinting, and there was nothing ever behind that besides just somebody who's handling drugs needs to be fingerprinted. The next thing, I got a couple things, so I'll try to be quick. The next thing is when I just tried to share the VMB page, and it puts a little icon in Facebook that is a person in a wheelchair. So it picks it up probably from some DCA. That is something that, I don't know if it's Breeze or whoever does the web page, but when you hit share, you say what icon you want to go in the share based on what page you're on. So that's home page that I was trying to share because I was going to tell people about the latest stuff on the home page. So I would just pick up the VMB logo, but that's up to you. All right, so that's another thing. And then now I'm not going to share it because it's got a person in a wheelchair and it doesn't make any sense. But it could be a cute dog or something. Then the next thing is the test plan being in cash. You know, that's just an internet thing, Nancy, that once something's in cache, it's there for a long time until the cache is cleared and, it's replicated and whatnot. So you'd have to always look, no matter if the most recent test plan was on the site, you'd have to go by the date of the file no matter what, because let's say you have 20 test plans out there. They're all going to come up, but they're also going to be a time stamp, date stamp by when the file was uploaded.
Well, take a look at it. I looked at it. There's no date on it. And there's nothing on your website that says anything about the test plan other
Okay.
than when you search for this item.
I think we can close this. I think Judy was trying to have an explanation about what happened with
Yeah,
you.
and cash,
but
yeah.
I don't think that there's anything further we need to talk.
Wait, I have one more
The-
thing.
the
We have a
presentation-
80% pass rate. I was wondering what Nancy what she's talking about.
Well,
July to
moving
December.
Oh,
along.
that 54. Oh, I was looking at this at 80%. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and
The
I,
presentation that we heard yesterday, I'm very convinced that the tests are fair and they are reflective of what qualifications are needed for entry-level RBT
it's not,
positions.
I'm not questioning the test.
And the statistics that are on the website is basically has a breakdown of what percentage of certain types of, what was that chart called?
Domain.
Domains and so forth. So it's,
I see what
and
you're
this
saying.
board does not have any influence on that. We never talk about it in open session or in closed session.
No, I'm not questioning the content of the exam. I'm just questioning the relationship that we have with the Veterinary Medical Board getting correct information about the test plan.
She's right, it's not showing a date.
And then one other issue that I'd like to bring up, we finally have some statistics here for the pass rates for the various schools, and I just looked over them, and there are several schools that are falling below the 10% average pass rate, and I'm hoping that the Veterinary Medical Board is paying attention to this.
Yeah.
And I promise you, Nancy, I will make an inquiry to the staff just to make sure that any information that we are supposed to be passing along is current. I hear your concerns, and I'll address it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay, this is effective 1/105.
Ethan, were you complete, was your report complete?
For the most part, I was just going
Just make
to
sure.
briefly touch on Breeze. I kind of did already a little bit. We talked about our BTRs, our kind of system fixes that we do occasionally. We touched a little bit on university licensure, which is a bigger effort for us. It's designing an entirely new license type was how it falls, and all these transactions are involved. Reiterating, we're trying to go paperless with this particular license type, which I think is a nice benefit to staff. We're requesting an early implementation of the university licensure through Breeze. Breeze is a big chip that needs to fall in that effort. That may cost the board some money if we have an early release date, meaning July 2017. Otherwise, any later release date may be able to be absorbed through current pro rata costs, but that's something we're working on right now. I have a meeting next week to talk about the design of the system. That's it. Any questions?
Yes.
The figures that you gave us for the pass rates for the schools, is that information available on the website from the national, from the AVMA, or?
So the national, we've just recently been able to obtain the national pass rates broken down by school. These are the most recent ones we have. We do have some historical ones. Those we didn't usually have those on the website in the past because we just didn't have them. Yes, we absolutely will publish those on the website, along with the RVT California exam has been published on the website and is published on the website for your perusal.
Thank you, Ethan.
Enforcement?
You guys, somebody, I got 2 of these, you guys. Does anybody need it? Oh,
I think it's different years, yeah.
oh, duh. Okay.
You're going to have to yell,
Good
Candace.
Morning.
Yes.
Does that work?
You're going to have to
We had no
yell.
luck
She's
on the
ready.
fan issue.
I've talked to 4 separate people. They told me it'll be a few minutes. I've talked to 4 separate people. They told me it'll be a few minutes. So hopefully that'll be resolved soon.
Yeah, we'll be in closed session.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sorry.
You try.
On October 8th, Kim Kirkmeyer, Executive Director of the Medical Board, and her staff were so gracious to allow me to attend their expert witness training. And overall, what I came away from that was with the satisfaction of knowing that we are on the right track with respect to our expert witness trainings. So just to give you an idea of what their training encompassed, they had 40 separate practitioners from varying specialties attending. The medical board gets approximately 8,000 complaints a year. They have 1,000 investigations and approximately 400 discipline per year. So obviously, there are a lot of differences between our board and their board with respect to numbers, and also they have a vertical enforcement model, which is a little bit different from ours. But at a foundational level, much of what we do is the same. They provided information regarding various tools and techniques that they can use in investigation. So I was taking notes there. Factors that may disqualify an individual as an expert. One of the concerns of their experts and of ours is always, what if I have to testify at hearing? What do I expect? What do I need to do? So there was a lot of time spent with respect to that. One of the things I found most interesting was they brought in a defense counsel who represents many, many physicians in actions in front of the medical board. And he kind of just gave an outline. He said, you know, this is my goal when I get in the courtroom. This is how I prepare. And this is what you need to do, and this is what you don't need to do. So it was really, really informative and enlightening.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
Outburst.
Another thing that they addressed, which is something that our experts also struggle with, is when they're writing a report, and that is determining the level and the type of violation that goes with what they're finding. So lots of really, really good information. So on November 3rd, in San Diego from 10 to 3, we are holding an expert witness. And we're calling this a roundtable instead of a training because it is a little bit different and the goals are a little bit different. Yes, sir.
Is their complaint process similar? They file an accusation, statement of accusations, and then the respondent replies to that, and they have an opportunity to do stipulated settlements and things like that. Is it similar to ours?
Yes, it is.
And just out of curiosity, do they quote-unquote lawyer up as quickly as our respondents do?
I don't know. I didn't have a chance to ask them that.
Okay.
Kurt could probably answer that.
A lot more.
You are correct, Dr. Nunez. Most physicians consult counsel.
Closer to the microphone. Sorry.
Most physicians consult with their counsel immediately upon receiving any type of missive from the medical board.
Can I ask a question? Based on Mark's question about do they have the accusation, isn't that just the due process that every board, I mean, that's everywhere, right? That's just due process,
That is
isn't
due
it?
process, and it's governed by the Administrative Procedures Act.
That's every board, yeah. That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, I never make assumptions of what doctors do, unlike how doctors make assumptions about what we do.
No, it's just due process. I thought it was the same. I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Yeah. So overall, the goal of our expert witness program is obviously clarity and consistency. But we're finding that there are still a lot of questions and need for guidance. So at the roundtable, our plans are to focus on questions about the process and the expert's role in the process, conflict of interest considerations, and then the reason we're calling it a roundtable is because we really want it to be an opportunity for everyone to share experiences and ask their questions and say, you know, this is what I encountered and this is how I handled it. This is what I encountered and I don't know how to handle it. Has someone else been there? So really looking forward to that. If any of you are interested in attending, please just let me know and we can arrange for that.
You said November 3rd.
November 3rd in San Diego at the Office of the
can't-
Attorney General.
I can't make it to this one, but I did the one with Diane, and it sounds like it's not exactly the same
No.
because you're getting feedback from people.
And what we've done is
Nancy and Ethan, keep it down back there.
we've invited
Dick, what's wrong?
Come on,
They're
Judy,
being loud.
Judy.
Okay.
we've invited a smaller group of experts
Yes.
that have both had experience writing several reports and have already testified at hearing. So the goal really, or the hope is that we can provide kind of a next level of information, and then those individuals can come back when we do an expert witness training next year for the general population of experts and help us with that.
Candace, I thought it was a little funny at first, but do you think it would be helpful to invite some sort of defense counsel to any of those training programs?
You know, it's not something I would have considered before I attended the medical boards, but it was very, very enlightening. So it's certainly something we can look into.
Candace, can you touch on the Dr. Pollard, Dr. Grant, and some of the outcome of our expert review committee in terms of what Diana Woodward-Hagel did? That's going to be part of this training as well. Dr. Pollard and Dr. Grant's role there will be to bestow their wisdom post-audit on some of the inconsistencies we were seeing, some of the lack of understanding the Practice Act that has plagued this board for years, and also talk about the disagreement in standard of care. And my feeling is that based on the comments from this board in past years and all of the work that the audit committee put in, that's probably not the most valuable piece, but a very valuable piece to this training is that we're going to have the MDC subcommittee there to interact with our experts. So I don't want that to get lost in part of
Absolutely.
the program rules.
In addition to Dr. Grant and Dr. Pollard being there as providing information from the audit task force, Dr. Pollard will also be providing information from the expert witness subcommittee. And a lot of what they'll be addressing and a lot of concerns that have been expressed, and this was consistent at the medical board's training as well, is how do we know the difference between incompetence, negligence, unprofessional conduct, standard of care, all of those types of issues. So I think that this will be really beneficial in kind of bringing everyone onto the same page.
Yeah.
We'll also have DCA legal counsel there. Diane Sokolov will be there. So it'll be an interesting mix and should be very interesting.
Is that a one-day?
It is. It's the third, and it's from 10 to 3. So the intent 10 to 3 is so that people can come in the morning and leave in the afternoon. Are there any other questions on that? In the complaint investigation unit, we closed we received 866 complaints in the 15-16 fiscal year, closing 890. And I have to tell you, there's a typo at the end of that. It says 169 days. That actually should be 269 days, which is well within the performance measure target of 365 days.
And I'd like to reiterate that Hawaii had 5.
At the last meeting, CVMA commented that they hear from their members that our letters are not specific enough to let the individuals know exactly what it is that the board needs from them when we're requesting information regarding a complaint. So we have gone back and revisited all of our letters in the enforcement unit with regard to the complaint process, made revisions, and put those into action. So I thank them for bringing that to our attention, and we have addressed it. Formal discipline. In 15-16, we forwarded 61 cases to the AG's office. We closed 50 with an overall average of, at that time it was 1,324 days. These numbers, they're different than what's in the statistical report, and I think part of the reason for that is just because we continue on a daily basis to identify and rectify issues with regard to our data in the New Breeze system and so forth. So there's a bit of fluctuation, much to my chagrin. But what's important here and what I want to point out is that of those 50 cases, 14 of them had been pending for over 4 years. And that's been a real push of ours, is to get that backlog taken care of, address those older cases. While most of them were at, right around that 4-year range, one of them had been opened in June of 2006. So, substantial accomplishment there. In August, we implemented the online voting process for consideration of decisions and stipulated settlements. That went pretty well. We started with 2 cases as kind of and we shouldn't have called it a trial run. That was my error. I apologize, because it wasn't really a trial or a test. It was actual cases, and it was very real, but we did 2 cases so that if there were problems, they were more easily addressed. And then we followed it with a regular mail vote through Breeze, and that went very well. Probation, we're currently monitoring about 94 probationers. Of course, you know that number continues to rise. You have in front of you the statistical report. I provided the full year 2015-16 and also the first quarter of the 16-17 fiscal year. If there are questions on that, I'm happy to answer those. The forecast for quarter 2 You can expect at least 2 mail votes between now and the January meeting. And I know at yesterday's meeting, there was an interest expressed in trying to get maybe more. So we'll try to get an extra mail vote in there.
Oh, goody.
Go ahead.
What dictates whether they can be online voting versus like bringing them in for closed session tomorrow? Is there any difference in them, or is it just a timing thing?
Timing is the primary consideration, and then, of course, if there's something that has been mail voted and there's been a vote to hold it, then, of course, that would come too.
I thought the
meeting as
online
well.
voting was really, really simple. After I got my user ID and everything, I was pretty amazed by how flawless that went, so thank you,
Good.
and good
I'm
deal.
glad to hear
Thank
that.
you.
On page 2, where it's under citations and cease and desist, are any of those cease and desist?
Are we changing that?
I'm sorry. Oh, you know what, we should have taken the cease and desist off there.
Yeah.
We've changed our process so that when there's an issue where we normally would send a cease and desist, or we would have in the past, we're sending a preliminary letter advising them that there's an issue and asking for information. That information then comes back and is reviewed by a veterinary medical consultant, and then the determination is made whether it
And
goes to
is cease and
citation or
desist
fine.
in regards to unlicensed activity?
I'm sorry?
Is cease and desist unlicensed activity?
That's where we would have primarily issued them in the past, yes.
Okay. Has there been any unlicensed activity?
Not this quarter.
Okay.
Oh, there's been the unlicensed activity, I'm sorry. There haven't been any, yes.
There's
always
unlicensed
unlicensed
activity.
activity.
There's just, we don't issue cease and desist letters. They would be
The
prelim
process has
letters.
changed.
Yeah, the process has changed because of all the fallout from, we all know the famous cases. But instead of it being cease and desist, cease and desist really says you're doing something wrong that violates the practice of, and you need to stop doing it. But there's no due process with cease and desist. So there is with citations. With a citation, you issue a preliminary letter, they respond to it. If the response does not rectify the issue, you move forward with a citation. A citation has an appeals process. So that's the difference between us using cease and desist letters, good timing, counsel, cease and
This
desist
is really
letters
good
and
timing, counsel.
citation.
We're sending a lot of them.
And citation, and so we will not be issuing cease and desist letters the way we did in the past because there's no due process and because they have been challenged in terms of how you apply them in an enforcement process.
Do we have the authority to issue a cite and fine to someone who's not a licensee?
Absolutely, and our citation regulations now give us the authority to charge $5,000 for every unlicensed activity action.
Okay.
Became effective October 1st, the new citation and fine regulations. Counsel, did you
I'm
have
sorry,
anything on
Candace,
that?
I wasn't able to hear you when you just spoke. Can you repeat
Our
that?
new citation and fine regulations took effect October 1st, so any violations subsequent to that time will be under the new system.
I bet you that was Kurt's idea, right? Have to send those letters. Brilliant legal counsel.
He keeps us on
He
track.
doesn't know what we're talking about.
He got credit and he was out of the room.
Can I ask a question? Candace, I'm on the 2015-16 enforcement statistics on Attorney General cases. And it looks like over the 4 quarters, the numbers for pending went from 59 to 66 to 130 to 131. And then you have a 131 with a 69 in parentheses. What does that mean?
That means that there were 131 separate complaints sent to the AG, but because each respondent may have more than one case, it resulted in 69 cases at the AG's office.
Okay, thank
So
you.
some of them are consolidated.
Yeah. Is your perception that we're catching up with the backload at the AG?
Absolutely. And that really is a combination effort between our staff, who has done an amazing job, and the fact that the AG's office has hired more AGs, they have more supervisors, so it's a combination effort. There are currently 8 cases that are kind of pending in the queue, waiting to go out for mail vote. There are 2 petitions for reduction of penalty that would have been scheduled for this meeting, but time doesn't allow, so they're being held. We expect 1 more. So hopefully those will be scheduled for the January board meeting. That's all I have. Is there any questions?
So I like to say that I'm, of course, a very strong advocate for consumer protection, but I also firmly believe in the process of due process, and I think that you've done a tremendous job with the expert witness training programs and the complaint process audit review, and you are to be commended on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any comments from the public, which is today Nancy? Okay. Cures?
Yeah, actually, Dr. Sullivan had asked for a cures update, and this is a department-wide cures update on how many people have registered, what the inquiries have been. Some of the primary questions that we don't have answers to yet is the exchange of information between cures registrants in terms of, if can they call each other to find out whether or not we might have a potential drug abuse problem with a patient. We haven't received any further direction from the department. So you can see the registration and usage stats by license type. PRAs mean provider action requests, though those could be anything from I need a change to my account, an update to my personal information, but just thought that it was interesting for you to see kind of where veterinary medicine is fitting in under the different license types. The date range is on the top, so it's by month. And then there's a kind of overall, the first page is an overall count. I don't know, users without a license type, I'm not really sure who gets to have a user.
Investigators, aren't they?
They might be. That's a good point. Investigators. Dr. Sullivan said investigators. I didn't think about that. However, we have license types, and we're up here with, regulatory boards. So we each have an account, and then there's DOJ analysts, admin, delegates, what have you. But it could be investigators. Good point. Any questions?
So there's
Not that I'll
only
be able to answer.
1,832 veterinarians that have signed up with Cures? Is that the way I read this?
As of 9/15/16.
And the requirement, that deadline was what, July 1st?
July.
So these other veterinarians just don't know about it?
I don't know that they don't know, or that we're still trying to catch up with getting everyone, because there was a Cures Point 1.0 and a Cures 2.0. So some of the confusion, this reflects what's on Cures 2.0, the new system. So I don't know if it's that they're not registering or that they're still reporting their dispensation, but they haven't registered for the new online system. They haven't transferred over. So it's hard to tell. We do, it's part of the hospital inspection checklist. We make sure they're registered. We look at their dispensation logs, and we also look at their receipt logs. So they show us that they are registered online with Atlantic Associates for, that reporting. It's hard to say whether or not this is an accurate depiction of how many veterinarians are on the 2.0 system. I can't answer that. This is just the report I got from the department.
So there was a deadline of July 1st. So say they didn't make the deadline. Is there any penalty for registering now?
No.
Okay.
No.
How would the hospital inspector know if they've done the 2.0? We have our Cures data, which means we've complied with putting it online.
Right.
But for us to be registered with the Department of Justice, who has that data?
Some inspectors ask for them to show them online that they've registered. Some inspectors just make sure that they've been registered. They ask the question, did you register? Are you aware of the requirement? This is, an obligation. And they either say yes or no, and we inform them that it's a requirement through the Department of Justice.
Did you have something, Judy?
Yeah, hold on. Okay, I know what my question was, as far as, so July was the deadline, and I didn't get on it. Now, is there ever a penalty, or is this indefinite? I mean, there's got to be a way to get them legal and start using it, right?
I believe that the thought process was any kind of penalty, and some of the boards, I believe, do have penalties, like pharmacy and perhaps nursing? I don't know. Pharmacy, I think, has a penalty for failing to register with cures. So it's been handled independent from board to board. Veterinary medicine wasn't really supposed to be part of that 2.0 system. The other system, the Atlantic Associates, where they're reporting dispensation, was always something veterinarians did. This other system where they report, they don't even have to report, they just have to register. So that if they have an instance where they believe that a client may be drug seeking.
Right, going to multiple people.
Right, that they can report it. It's really hard to know whether or not, by virtue of the pet coming in, a client may be drug seeking. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that I think the argument was veterinarians aren't trained as drug abuse specialists or to detect and identify individuals that may be drug shopping.
No, I get that. I just think that we should be charging a penalty to help us recoup some of, the money that we need. Because if other boards charge a penalty, at some point, we'll give you a year to get on, and if you haven't gotten on by then, it's $100 every year you don't get on, or just something to bring in some revenue.
Right. So to answer that, Judy, they're already charged a cures fee with their license, and it's $12 per license. So they're charged up front.
Oh, up front, whether they ever register or not.
That's right. Everyone has to pay a cures fee.
Dr. Sullivan?
There's two different programs. One
You have to speak up.
There's two different programs. One is the cures, where we have to weekly go online and say what we've dispensed on controlled substance. Then there's the Cures 2.0 that we have to register with the Justice Department to say we have a DEA number. It is voluntary as to whether we're required to go on and see if this client has a history of getting drugs at other places. At this point, my understanding is veterinarians are exempt from that. Other prescribers are required to do that. So that's where there's there's two phases to it, and we're kind of on the edge of it.
Is it considered to be an issue of non-compliance for the hospital inspector if they're not registered with 2.0?
It is non-compliance. They don't get cited for it. We mark it as they're not registered, and we tell them they have to rectify it, because it is a requirement that they're registered. What Dr. Sullivan's referring to is whether or not they have to report, and they're not mandated to report, but they are mandated to register.
Okay. We're such a small board.
Can I just ask one more question? So when my veterinarian, because I've had people call me and say, what's your date of birth? Because it was after the fact. I left the vet, I took the drugs home, and then somebody calls me the next day and goes, oh, we need your date of birth, yada, yada, to put you in our cure system. But that's what Dick is saying, there's actually two. So the one that we're talking about, 2.0, just has to do with the DEA license and not me as the consumer coming in. That's the other system. Okay.
That's the dispensing system.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I think that's the end of reports. So we will go into closed session next.
We need agenda items and next meeting dates.
Oh, yeah.
You want me to-
Yeah.
Okay. So agenda items for the next meeting, I have a few down, and you guys can fill in the blanks here. I would recommend that the board consider putting telemedicine on the next meeting agenda. Foreign experience for veterinarians, the issue that we had difficulty fleshing out yesterday. VACSP program implementation. And then I also think that we'll have some updates to the RVT school reporting when Ethan completes the full analysis of all of the schools. We'll be providing you with kind of a data sheet to see what we learned from that reporting. And if there are any other agenda items?
I would think respectfully you're going to have an answer to how much Breeze is going to cost, perhaps.
I'm sorry, yeah, the fee structure, thank you, fee structure, including Breeze costs.
And don't forget the passing of the gavel ceremony.
Oh. And the passing of the gavel ceremony. There will be a ceremonial passing of the gavel.
And lots of pageantry.
I don't know if the comment on the Breeze includes an update on our budget projections.
Fund condition and budget projections, that's all. We're going to do a full fee structure, just so you can see where we're at in terms of our fund condition.
Are we in Sacramento for January?
Yes.
And I have the 18th and 19th down. Is that still it?
Correct.
There'll be an NBC on the 17th?
Yeah, MDC is on the 17th, and then Veterinary Medical Board is 18th, 19th. And just for future meeting dates, April 19th, 20th, we're looking at Oakland again at that waterfront. And then July 26th, 27th. Those dates were changed to accommodate because there's an AVMA conference, but July will either be Southern California or Sacramento. Same thing with October. One of those dates will be SoCal, the other date will be back in Sacramento.
Can we not do that waterfront thing?
No.
That was awful to get to, and the whole thing, it was really inconvenient.
Everyone else really liked it.
They did?
Uh-huh, yeah. And they're super accommodating with staff and pricing.
And pricing.
Was it hard to get to?
It was awful.
Not for me.
I drove.
I drove.
You drove?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, you live.
Yeah.
I had to fly in and drive there, and the traffic was so bad. It was unbelievable.
She comes from LA.
Yeah.
No, this was like dead stop all the way there.
What are the dates of the October meeting?
The October meeting is the 18th and 19th.
I know it's in the agenda, I was just kind of writing it all right.
The only problem I had is when I got to the hotel, there's a railroad track there.
Yeah.
The divide came down on the top of my car.
Oh, that's right, I remember that. You did have an issue.
We shouldn't be there. See, I told you, it's not good.
That could explain it.
I know. Candace, your friend Casper is having a good time with the door and the shades.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break before we go into closed session.